All right, so we're going to talk about multiplying and dividing real numbers. So one of the first things that I want to talk about is this acronym is SPAN. Okay, it means same sign positive. Opposite sign negative. Okay, so this works for multiplication and division. So let's take some examples here. So let's say, for example, if I had a negative a times a positive b, it's going to be a negative, and then you can do the a times b. If I had a negative a times a negative b, if you notice that they're the same signs, right? Both negative, same side, that means the answer or the product is going to be positive. So it's just going to be a times b. Okay, so these are called product. Okay, product is the result after multiplying. Okay, so let me put an arrow here. There we go. All right, so that's the first thing I wanted to say. So so if I had -2 times -3, that's going to equal to positive 6, which is the same thing as 2 times 3, which is also equal to positive 6. But if I had -2 times 3, since the signs are opposite, the 2 is negative, the 3 is positive, opposite signs, then I'm going to have a -2 times 3, which is 6. If I had 2 times -3, same thing. I'm going to get a -6 because the signs are opposite. So I want to have a negative, and then 2 times 3 is 6. Okay. The other thing that we got to talk about is 0. So anything times 0 or 0 times anything is going to give you 0. Okay. So if you take, I can say, okay, I got 2 times 3 times 5 times 0. Well, that's going to equal to 0. Because if I multiply all of this together, which is equal to 30, and multiply that by 0, it's still going to be 0. So anything times 0 is going to be 0. All right? So, but, you know, in terms of just regular integers, it's easy to multiply. The biggest concern you guys are going to have is, what if it is a fraction? Because you guys love fractions so much. That was sarcasm. Since you guys love fractions so much, this is what you actually do with fractions. So let's just take a fraction like a divided by b times c divided by d. Okay. What you would actually do is multiply the top with the top and the bottom with the bottom. So I'm going to put it this way. Top times top, bottom times bottom. Or numerator times numerator and denominator times denominator, and keep that fraction. Now, you always want to see if you can simplify or not. So I'm going to put down here, not dot, don't forget to simplify. Okay, so let's take some examples here. Let's say I have example. So let's say I have -20/9 times 3 over 19, okay? So 2 ways you can do this, okay? So first way is this, just multiply. So first, spawn. Spawn says that I have opposite signs, so I know it's going to be negative, okay? That's there. And then, what's my top? Well, my top is 20 times 3, which is 60, over 9 times 19, which is 171. And then what you have to do is figure out if that can be simplified or not. Is there a number that goes into 60 and 171? And the answer is yes. 3 can go into both. So in other words, if 3 can go into both, then this is what you can do. Remember when we were adding and subtracting fractions, we would multiply top and bottom by a certain number in terms of what does she have that I don't have. Well, simplifying is the same idea, okay? So if you think of it this way, I can either think of it as I'm going to divide by 3, and what I will get now is 20 over 57, okay? And you can still look at it and say, okay, can I break it down more? Can I simplify it more? And the answer is going to be no, okay? The 3 goes into the bottom, but doesn't go into the top, okay? Now, that's one way of doing it. What's the second way of doing this, okay? 2. The second way of doing it is this. So if I had negative 20 over 9 times 3 over 19, okay? So you can reduce or simplify or cancel, however you want to look at it. It's looking at a top number versus a bottom number. So if I looked at the 20 and 19, nothing goes in those two. I can look at 20 compared to the 9. Nothing goes in those two either, okay? So I look at the 3 and the 19. Well, nothing can go into those two. Then I can look at 3 and 9. Ooh, look, 3 goes into both of them. So 3 goes into 3 how many times? Once. 3 goes into 9 how many times? 3. So now that I've reduced it, and I would suggest this method, is because it keeps everything simple. Because now everything is broken down to the furthest it can go. So now I can say, okay, again, spawn, opposite sign, so it's going to be negative. And then I have the fraction, 20 times 1 is 20. And the bottom says 3 times 19, which is 57. So either way, I still get the same answer, okay? So it doesn't matter which way you do it. I would strongly suggest method 2, just because I do believe that it's an easier method, all right? And then, so that is the way you would do multiplying rational numbers. So let's talk about dividing a little bit. So dividing, spawn still works the same exact way. So if I was to do this here, copy it. Paste it and move it. Spawn still works the same way with division, okay? So in other words, I can say if I had a negative A divided by a positive B, it's still going to be a negative A over B, or I can also write it as this, A over B with a negative in the middle, okay? It doesn't go with top and bottom. It's just either in the middle or not, okay? So these 3 mean the same thing, or these 2 mean the same thing. If I had a negative A divided by a negative B, since they're the same sign, it'd be A divided by B, okay? So please do understand that. Now, the other thing is that what if I had A divided by negative B, okay? So mathematicians don't like that negative in the denominator. So even when I'm dividing these two, again, still I would get a negative a over b because they're opposite signs. One's positive, one's negative. So I'm still going to get negative a over b. I can also write this as a negative a over b. Okay? The difference of these two is this. This one right here is saying I'm taking the negative a value divided by the b value. Still going to get a negative number. Okay? And this one over here is saying, okay, I'm going to divide a and b first by itself, and then I'm going to negate it. All right? So that's the difference of those two meanings. But either way, you're still going to get a negative number. All right? So the next thing I was starting to talk about up there was that zero thing, right? So if I had 0 divided by anything, that's going to equal to 0. You can actually put this in your calculator and you'll get the answer 0. Okay? It's like bringing 0 number of pies, pizza pies, to a party, right? If you brought 0 pizzas to a party, well, everybody's going to get 0 pieces. Okay? Versus if I had a divided by 0, so anything divided by 0, this right here, if you plug this into your calculator, you're actually going to get your calculator will either say error, undefined error, divided by 0 error. Either way, you're going to get an error message. And the reason is because if you brought a number of pizza pies to a party of 0 people, I call that my Saturday night, then that means that party doesn't exist. So this is actually going to be undefined. Okay? So you got to remember these two things right here. This is very important. Okay? So 0 divided by anything, 0. Anything divided by 0 is going to be undefined. Okay? All right. So let's look at what do we do. Well, before I talk about what do we do with multiplying rational numbers or fractions, because like I said, with integers, it's a lot easier. So let's talk about this as well. So you're going to come up with come to a phrase that's going to say, where's that word? It's going to be called multiplicative excuse me, inverse. This is also known as the reciprocal. Okay. So multiplicative inverse is also known as reciprocal. Okay. Reciprocal just means to flip. Okay. So I'm going to say flip. Actually, let's do one better. Let's make that red. Okay. So reciprocal. So if I had A over B, then my reciprocal would be B over A. So I should even, put this all in red. There we go. All right. So that's what reciprocal is. So if I said find the reciprocal of 3 over 4, you're going to say 4 over 3. If I said find the reciprocal of negative 3 over 4, this is going to be, so you're going to want to write 4 over negative 3. However, you're going to finish this with negative 4 over 3. Okay, actually, let me do this. Or negative 4 over 3. Okay, so understand that. So those are reciprocals. Okay, so why did I teach you reciprocal or the multiplicative inverse? Is because you might have to divide rational numbers. So you might see something like this. Okay, you might see something that says, hey, it's 2/3 divided by a negative 8/5. Well, first of all, so first thing we would do is this. To do division, what you would do is, especially with fractions, okay, you're going to do something called copy, change, and flip. Okay, what do I mean by copy, change, flip? There's three things here, okay? So let's even do it this way. We'll put that in green, and then we'll put this in blue, okay? So this way you can see what's in red. So copy is this, copy the first fraction. Change is to change the division to multiplication. I'm going to put this in green here, okay? And then I'm going to flip that fraction, so 5/8, okay? So I'm changing a division problem into a multiplication problem. Now, in high school, you might have heard of keep, change, flip, copy, change, flip, keep, change, flip. I don't really care which way you remember it, as long as you remember it. Now, again, I go and look at does 2 and 3, does anything go into 2 and 3? You're gonna be like, nope. How about 2 and 8? And you're gonna be like, yeah, there's something that goes into it. 2 goes into 2, how many times? Once. Goes into 8, 2 goes into 8, 4 times, okay? So let me see if I can do this here. Dang it. So there's a 2 here. All right, so then you're also gonna look at the 5 and the 3, and the answer is nothing. How about the 5 and the 4? Still nothing. So that means I'm done reducing. Then my answer is going to be, let's look at spawn. Spawn, it says these are opposites, right? The 2/3 is a positive while the 5/8 is a negative. So the result is going to be negative. Top times top, so I got 1 times 5 and 3 times 4. And therefore, that is my answer. Okay? So remember that, all right? And other than that, everything else should be good. There is one more thing that I do want to point out. Okay, so let's do one more example here. And the example is this. So let's say I have 8 squared minus 4 over 1 minus 4 squared. So, in order for me to divide these two, what I need to do is make sure that my top is one number and my bottom is also one number before I can actually divide. All right, so that's number one. So think of it as this, that there are parentheses around these two. So I got to do the top parentheses first, and I got to do the bottom parentheses first as well, and then I can divide those two numbers. The other question that you might have is, hey, what does 8 squared mean? Okay, 8 squared just means 8 times 8, okay? So 8 times 8 is 64. So when you write the power of 2, then that's the number of times that we write out that number called a base, however many times and multiply it. So if I had, let's say, 2 to the 4th, that would be a 2 times 2 times 2 times 2. So write the base 2 4 times and multiply them together, and that will give me 16. Okay, and 4 squared means write the base 4 twice and multiply them. Okay, so in this case, what do I have on the top? I have a 64 minus 4 over a 1 minus 16. Again, think of these as in parentheses. So now the top is going to be a 60 over negative 15. Now I can divide. Let's see if 60 goes into 15. 60 divided by 15 is 4. And we use spawn. Spawn says the top number is positive, the bottom number is negative. So my result is going to be a negative. 60 divided by 15 is 4. So therefore, that is my answer. Okay? If you have any other questions, you know how to get a hold of me. I hope this went well.